Now you're sent back to rehab after that.
Well, then I go to court the next morning for the arraignment, and the judge is like, "You got to be kidding me." So now, by now though, when I'm going from the local police department into the Superior Court, holding cell area, everybody knows me. All the marshals and the officers and everything. So like, "Hey, Sytch, you're back." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm back." It was a circus. So we go into the arraignment, and the judge is like, "I just can't keep doing this with you." Well, meanwhile, downstairs, the public defender that I had, she's telling me, she's like, "Do you realize that you have 4 counts of a 5-year felony? In Connecticut, violation of a protective order is a 5-year felony. And I had 4 violations of it, 4 counts. So that's a possible 20 years in jail, just because I went home." There were no fights, no violence, no nothing. That was just the first one.
How'd she get you out of that?
She didn't. The judge looked at me and said he was raising my bond to a $100,000 cash bond, which means you can't put 10% down and get a bondsman. You have to come up with $100,000 cash. So basically I was told, well, you're going to have to sit in jail until your court date. This was October 11th, I think, and the court date was scheduled for October 30th. So I don't know, October 9th or 30th. Regardless, I was looking at sitting in jail for 21 days, waiting for court to happen. So I just kind of, I've never been in jail, so just the thought of 21 days in jail, it's like, oh my God, I was freaking out. I was a mental wreck. I was breaking down. But I basically kind of convinced myself, okay, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's no 2 ways around it. I've got to sit there until court, because my 78-year-old mother can't come up with $100,000 cash, just to get me out.
Did they move you to a county jail at this point?
Straight into state prison.
Oh, really? So you did, oh, wow.
Straight into state prison.
For a 21 day, okay.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there amongst hardened criminals, murderers, rapists. Believe it or not, there are women rapists. A lot of crazy stuff. In my few days I was there, I actually became friends with a girl named Liza, who was doing a 40-year sentence. She's already done 25 years of it, and she was excited. She was getting out soon. She only had 6 more years to go. She was one of the Latin queens, and when she was 16, in a fight with a bunch of gang girls, they took it too far and beat a girl to death, and she was pregnant, so she got 2 counts of murder. That was one of my friends in jail. Yeah, so those kind of people I was around. On my 4th day in, they said I had a visitor. I'm thinking, visitor? The only person I've spoken to so far is my mom. I go down, and there's a guy I've never seen before in my life there, and he says he wants to represent me as my lawyer. So we have a talk for about 2 hours, and he's like, "Listen, I can, I've done this before. I can do this. I can get you out because you were intoxicated when all this happened. I can get you out and get you into a program." I said, "Listen, I don't care what you got to do. Just get me out of here. I don't care if I have to go 3 months into rehab. Just get me out of here," because it was just like ridiculous. And that's where the short hair comes in too. It's another story.
They cut your hair?
Yeah, as soon as I got into state prison, they said I couldn't have extensions in my hair. They said I couldn't have the bonds that hold the extensions in, but instead of trying to get the bonds out, they took my ponytail, including my own hair, and cut it all off. And of course the tears started flowing, because here I am, no hair. Never had short hair in my life, and now I do. Rocking the short hair.
Well, it's a little Benatar.
Hey, I have no choice. They cut it off in jail. But
this next facility you go into,
yeah,
your lawyer gets you out before the 21 days.
8 days I had to spend in jail.
And you go into another facility.
Yeah.
Paid for by?
WWE.
4, right?
This is the 4th.
Okay.
Yeah. Basically.
Ballpark me on how much that costs. I just.
This place that I was going into, $32,000 for the 30 days.
Right. And so similar price prior to that?
Yeah, it was $30,000 for 28 days. It's all.
Okay, so.
It's an average rehab is about $1,000 a day.
Okay.
So, my new lawyer, he says he's going to do it pro bono. He's a longtime wrestling fan. He just saw everything on the news and teams. He didn't want to see me go down in flames, because I was looking at 4 counts of a 5-year felony. When I went to court, chances were I'd have to do 3 to 5 years in prison, just because of violation of. Now you weren't even looking at the disorderly conducts or anything like that. It was the violation of a protective order that can put you in jail 3 to 5 years, just because you go home. because you're not smart enough to stay away.
You're too drunk to stay away.
Too drunk to stay away, yeah. So he talks to the head lawyer from WWE, gets in touch with the whole wellness department thing, and they hook up where I can go straight from court after the 8 days in jail directly out to the Karen Foundation out in Reading, Pennsylvania. Now, at this time, this is when Linda McMahon was running for Senate. So me being in the news all over New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut, the 6 o'clock news, the 11 o'clock news, 4 or 5 times over a month period, plus TMZ 5 times, wasn't looking good for the company and for her. They were quite upset. So they said, all right, we're going to put her in a nice place. We're going to put her in a place that, like we put her in summer, you know, just let's get her out of trouble. We don't want any more negative press, blah, blah, blah. So I went to the Karen Foundation. It was supposed to be 90 days. That's what the court needed, 90 days. And I did 39 there.
Okay.
And I was basically kicked out. They like to call it therapeutically discharged.
Why? Who kicks you out? The program itself?
The program.
Because they thought you were done?
Well, no. See, I always kind of felt weird going there because they always kind of looked at me different because I did come straight from jail. Like my first 3 days, I was wearing the same clothes because I didn't even have any clothes because I came straight from jail. I was even wearing some jail clothes there. And because of my job, they were kind of like, oh, she thinks she's a celebrity, you know. So I kind of like
Were you being bitchy to anybody?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. I just felt a weird feeling when I first got there, like they kind of looked at me different than their other clients. And the entire time I was there, it was like, I mean, because there are rules and guidelines and protocol you're supposed to follow, just, you know, like anywhere. But it's like everybody bends the rules and breaks the rules and plays with the rules, but it seems like everybody got away with it but me.
What kind of rules would you break?
I use the phone too much.
Oh, okay. You weren't using alcohol or sneaking in anything?
No. I used the phone too much. That was a big, because you're only supposed to use the phone for 15 minutes a day. Mm-hmm. And of course, I was on the phone a few times a day, you know, calling home. And so that was one of their huge main things. Another thing, they were saying I wasn't opening up in groups. I have a really hard time like trusting people and letting people into my life, partially because of what I do. And so they were like complaining about that. And then their big fraternizing rule. Fraternizing is defined as not even talking to people of the opposite sex. And being that it's a co-ed place and you're in groups of people, it's kind of hard to avoid men. It's hard for men to avoid women.
How can you?
Right.
It's ridiculous.
There were a couple of girls that were there in my unit with me that would tell me about their little sexcapades on campus with other people, but I would get in trouble left and right just by talking to people. So since I was breaking every rule in the book, according to these people, and they didn't want to deal with me anymore, but let everybody else slide, they said, we think you need a place with more structure and more guidelines. Mm. And they said they were going to send me to a place called Concept 90 in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, even farther away from home. And I said, well, let me call my company, since they're funding it. They said, oh, we already spoke to them. This is the only place they'll fund. So what do you mean it's the only place? Are you not going to let me look at the place? Not going to let me see where I'm going and like give me a choice of something? No. They said, this is the only place that your company will fund. I said, well, what are my options? They said, you go here or we can drop you off at a women's shelter and you're on your own. So here I am thinking, okay, I've only done 39 days. The court wanted a long-term 90-day thing, but basically the judge said to me on that 5th court date, if you do 1 day less than 90 days, you're facing jail time. Mm-hmm. So here I am starting to freak out, going, oh my God, what do I do? So I'm in the middle of getting discharged and getting my things together, and I called Damien, again against court orders. Mm-hmm. And
but you've been talking while you were in rehab, right?
Yeah, the whole time. Yeah. But I called and I said, what do I do? I said, do you want to come pick me up and I'll just like, I don't know, be a fugitive, go on the run? I was thinking like crazy thoughts because here I am. I had no idea what to do. I was just lost. I'm like, do I go to this place? Do I just leave? Do you want to come get me? What do I do? I was freaking out. And he's like, you got to go. You have to go and finish this or else, I mean, you'll be on the run the rest of your life to avoid, a 3-year jail sentence.
You didn't know that this place wouldn't be nice.
I had no idea.
This 90 place.
No idea. But I was just like, after you do 39 days, after other rehabs before, it's like you get to the end of your rope. And it's like, I got to keep going. It's almost like you feel the end and that taste of freedom is there. And I mean, think if you were a prisoner in like Alcatraz and you had a taste of freedom, would you want to go back into Alcatraz or do you want to just go on with, Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's an extreme, of course. It's not even in the same category, but that's how you feel. I was tempted just to leave, but I said, I rationalized and said, okay, I got to keep going so I can get all this,
And how's this
done.
place, this 90 place?
Oh my God. As I pulled up, I was on the phone with him, and I started crying immediately when I saw the place. Did you ever see the movie Girl Interrupted with Angelina Jolie, Winona Ryder? They're in a mental hospital.
Mental hospital, right.
Well, this is where they shot it. So if you look at this disgusting facility in the movie, this is where I was. Where they do lobotomies and all kinds of crazy. Yeah. It used to be Harrisburg State Hospital, and when the hospital actually closed down, they made it into a couple of different rehab facilities. So I look at the building and I see bars on the windows, and I'm already freaking out because I'm used to like the country club setting, So I immediately start crying. You got to come get me. I can't do this. You have to come get me.
Could you call Connecticut, WWE, and say, send me to another place?
I did once I got in there.
Patch me through to Vince.
I did once I got in there.
And?
They said, absolutely not. This is the only thing we'll pay for. Ever again. Coincidentally, the Senate race had just ended. So as the Senate race was going on, they're paying $1,000 a day.
For the nice place.
As soon as the Senate race is over, guess how much this place costs a day? So you can just, $106 a day. It was on the wall, that's how I knew how much it cost. And I had to sign the papers for the financing. A 90-day treatment there would cost $9,000. So I got on the phone with the guy in developmental that's in charge of all that. His name's Bob. And I said, Bob, I can't be here. And it wasn't because of the posh, cushy thing I was used to. This is a state-run, state-funded facility, which means it's run by the prison system. I was the only one in there that wasn't on parole. I was the only person in there that didn't spend a year or more in jail. These are the people I was in there with.
What was your roommate?
You have two roommates. One just finished 14 months in jail, and one just finished 13 months in jail, and they were sent there on parole. So they have to do 90 days in there on parole before they go to a halfway house before they can finally be released. It's part of the whole program they do. So I was the only person in there not on parole and not straight from over a year sentence in jail.
Could you get to Vince directly?
They would not. They would not let me talk to anyone else. And this place only allows you to make one phone call when you get there, and then you're on a 2-week call blackout. You can't even call your lawyer in those 2 weeks. And then you're only allowed one phone call, one 10-minute phone call a week after that. So you're cut off from the world.
How long did you do in there?
Well, I struggled through, what did I do? 38 days. 77.
In that place?
Yeah. 77 days total between the two places. But the place was disgusting. The health inspectors were coming every single week to do inspections, and it was on the verge of being shut down every week. There is no cleaning staff. The clients, as they call them, I call them inmates, but the clients are the cleaners. We had to scrub bathrooms, we had to scrub toilets, we had to scrub floors, walls, everything.
And if you don't do a good job, it just stays that way.
No, you have to redo it. Their form of punishment, if you do something wrong, is you have to wash dishes from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day for a week. And you're not allowed to sit. 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., you're on your feet washing dishes. And when the dishes are all washed, you put them all back in and you rewash them. It's called continuous pan LE. LE means learning experience. So basically, it wasn't a rehab. It was behavior modification. They take parolees out of jail and try to teach them behavior so when they get out on the street, they don't end up back in jail.
Did you feel safe in that environment?
No. It's one of the things I told WWE when I called them when I first got there. I said, listen, I don't feel safe here. I'm here with a bunch of people straight out of jail. I said, granted, I spent 8 days, but 8 days is a lot different from a 14-month sentence that these people are doing. One guy was in there for 5. He was in jail for 5 years because he kidnapped another drug dealer and threatened to kill him. He just came out of prison from 5 years. I mean, there is some crazy stuff going on in here. And I said, I don't feel safe here. Like I was constantly shaking. I was constantly nervous. And I'm like, and they were like, no, this is where you have to be. So I talked to the program director of the place, and I said to him too, I said, listen, I'm going to write something on paper. And I did. I wrote a formal thing on paper saying, I'm afraid for my safety here. I need to get transferred to another facility because they have other like sister facilities of this place that the funding would have been okay, but like that are better. Turns out, I found out that this was the worst of the entire like line of, behavior modification facilities. And the guy looked at me, he goes, with what you do for a living, you're not afraid of your safety. He basically laughed it off and tried to say that I was making it up. I'm like, dude, I'm not a real fighter. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not, begging people to come and attack me so I can like prove myself. I said, this is ridiculous here, what I'm gonna, and nobody cared. Nobody cared at all. So I had to make it through 38 days. And on my 38th day, I was discharged from there too, kicked out.